Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another AFL Fantasy Fanatics Tuesday night Q&A show. I'm your host, Bales, and you can find me at BAILSDT across the socials. And it is Tuesday, the 18th of March, and a bit of drama here at AFL Fantasy Fanatics HQ. Guesty's flight was delayed from Melbourne to Perth. So, unfortunately, he is not able to make it tonight. Jordox has got family and busy and whatever, so he can't make it as well. So that is unfortunate, but I'm sure we'll hear from those guys in the near future. But we do have a couple of special guests jumping on with us tonight. And the first guest I'm going to be introducing it's the return. He was obviously runner-up in 2022, been a little bit quieter last couple of years, but he's back. He's currently ranked 18th after round one and is, I dare say, all those coaches up the top are going to be shaking in their boots, seeing the team name Shuckers around the top. So it is James, coach of Shuckers. James, mate, welcome back, mate. Good to have you back on the show. How are you and how was that weekend?
Yeah, good, Bales. I mean, it's always nice jumping on, doing a few of these little pods and having a yarn. I mean, that was an absolute dream to start 2025 fantasy season for me. Like I don't think I've ever had, even in my runner-up year, a week where I came top 20. I think my best round week was in the 30s or 20s or something for the week. So definitely a PB week for me. And it was just one of those weeks where everything came together, which you don't often find in fantasy. Usually something goes wrong. So yeah, it was an absolute dream.
Oh, mate, I would. I'm sitting here bloody at 20-odd thousand, still don't have Levi Ashcroft, don't have Xavier Lindsay, don't have Tom Power, don't have Sam DeConing. But you've got all of them. You've got all of them, which is great. So talk us through, I guess, a few of the, I guess, plus three, negative three, obviously. What was your score? And I guess some of those real winners for you in round one, just to let listeners know how you sort of started off.
Yeah, so I scored the 22.44, which is obviously monster score. I had, a bunch of guys go 120 plus, DeConing, the two guys in the ruck, DeConing as well, and Cherry, Dawson, Powell. I mean, Powell was so far been a great pick, priced at 79 or 80, whatever he was, and goes a 120. That really helps, especially when you fade a guy like Will Day for the cash. My kind of thinking when I hear this talk around a Sam Taylor or a Will Day is, who I want. Obviously, I wasn't hot on either at any point in the preseason, especially not Sam Taylor. Will Day, I don't really back his fantasy game. Like, obviously, brilliant footballer, but I wasn't crazy about him to make 100K. And my kind of philosophy, especially in this year, when there's so much cash available in the forward line from underpriced premiums, so much cash available in the midfielders, is that it's not really required. I mean, proof will be in the pudding in the later weeks if it was or not, but pick the players that you think are most underpriced. They're going to make you the most cash anyway. So I was happy to take those kind of higher owned guys on, and so far it's worked out, but 1 week is not a long time in fantasy.
Oh, exactly right, mate. So it'd be interesting to get your thoughts and opinions on a few of the questions we've got in the chat as well. But we do have another special guest jumping on tonight. Is one of our favourite special guests to be jumping on. It's our good friend Liam from Free Kick, the official AFLW Fantasy Podcast. Liam, mate, how are you? How was the first weekend of footy?
I'm pretty good. First weekend of footy was pretty solid. Both, I don't think the Bombers got beaten nearly as badly as I was expecting. And my fantasy team sitting at 10K. So I didn't exactly, kick it out of the park. And I can't say that I won everything, but I don't actually think I'm set up too poorly.
Yeah, mate. No, I'm envious of people that are ranked high. Just for once, I'd like to be ranked high after round one. What did you end up scoring, Liam? And what would be your plus and minus 3 from round one?
So I scored 21.05, so that puts me at 10.8, just 10,800 pretty much. Plus 3 to Joel Frazier, someone that I was hot on very early and have been hot on since the end of last year as an option. -3. I I think it's got to go to one of Sanders or Garcia. I think I maybe lean towards Garcia just because he had a lower score, but I would say that they both well underperformed expectations. I could have been extremely scathing, could have given it to Clayton Oliver or Will Day, but Will Day at least made some cash and Clayton Oliver actually managed to get above 80. So there was some definite underperformance this week and ones I'll be looking at removing. And that's forgetting as well Perryman. But I almost feel like I'm insulated by ownership on that one.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, now a few poor performers and definitely some guys that we're going to be looking at trading out as well. So, as I said, we'll get stuck into a heap of questions because I know you guys got plenty of questions here. We do have a super chat here from Tim Ashworth, so thanks, mate, for sending that through. So he says, Garcia to Hall, Hasty to Ashcroft as the two trades, or Perryman and SDK, Hasty to Ashcroft, or Garcia to Hall, Taylor to SDK. So, Liam, how would you be going with those three combos of trades and where would you sort of go from there?
Look, I think that if you've got Sam Taylor, unless he's absolutely 100% required in your team for a loop, he'd be the player that I'm looking to trade out this week to make use of the guaranteed cash, which is the reason why you picked him. Now, you could also argue that it's about the speed at which you made that cash, which is an advantage. But in general, I think Taylor to SDK is an absolutely fine trade. That being said, I do hate the idea of starting your side without Ashcroft because I think he's going to get away from us very quickly. I almost think then it's the Garcia to Hall, Hasty to Ashcroft that I might preference. But if there's any way that you can also get Taylor out and also bring Ashcroft in, that's where I'd be leaning.
Yeah, I think I agree. Do you think that is Ashcroft the number one? I guess if you don't have him, is he the number one target this week?
Yes, unequivocally.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and that's why I'm kicking myself that I didn't make that trade. But yeah, no, agreed. No, thanks for the super chat there, Tim. But yeah, so I guess we'll quickly chat about the preference of players because I know a lot of people are struggling who to trade in, and then in terms of ordering the targets, and then also who to trade out. So I think we'll start off with who to trade out because that's obviously what will probably dictate who you can bring in, Liam. So if you had to pick, I guess, the top three, fairly popular players that a lot of people have got, where would you sort of rank them in terms of who needs to go? You've obviously got guys like an Angus Hasty, a Riley Sanders, a Hugo Garcia, a Will Day as well to an extent, obviously with the tougher run coming up. Sam Taylor, as you mentioned, a few others. How would you sort of rank a few of these guys that in terms of their trade-out preference?
So I think trade-out preferences, a lot of it will come down to the team sheet. So I think the alarming thing with Hasty was when they picked Ari Schoenmaker to play, that should have sent off alarm bells because I got the sense that they had picked one too many defenders to hold them through the entire game. So that's definitely going to dictate what kind of picks you're making. And then the same goes for Hugo Garcia. I have to wonder if Hunter Clark or Zach Jones is dropped. I think Zach Jones was completely ineffective. And I wonder if he's someone who does lose his spot in the side. If he's picked again, Hunter Clark is picked again, then maybe you make the case that Garcia is a priority trade. I still think he's cheap enough now and he's still got a low enough break even. And I almost think that it's a trade this week or you're holding at least 3 weeks. Or actually, no, you're trading this week or next week, or then you're holding for 6 weeks because after he comes out of his bye, he's got one bad game and then a great run. I agree with Shuckers, though. I went with the cash generation in this instance, even if I hadn't been hot on Will Day all season. I hadn't necessarily considered Tom Powell, but Jai Caldwell is someone that I probably would have picked if it weren't for his bye in round 4. Now, I know that sounds like a hindsight hero type of thing, but DC, myself and Eloise have all been discussing the possibility of picking Caldwell. I think you hold Perryman a week. I don't know about everyone else, but
yeah,
he's like, that was a stinky roll. He got dropped got behind the ball later in the game and the ball did not enter that D50. Again, insulated by ownership, but in this instance, we don't have the advantage of the breaks that are around his price anyway. So that's where I'd be going on the trade out priorities.
Yeah, I think I agree with the Perryman. You get a free look, right? He's got the buy in round 3, you trade him in his buy anyway, and you get to have a look. And if he puts up a 110, I think a lot of us would put it down to the round 1 was just a weird roll, because I don't think any of us predicted Ned Long, of all people, to be having the most CBAs of Collingwood, and then still side bottom at 3. And then, Perryman sort of a little bit down the list after playing midfield all preseason. James, where would you sort of rank these players? Obviously, the good thing about your team is you don't have a few of these players. So, but in terms of if you did have all of them, where would you be landing with a few of these guys?
Oh, yeah, it's tough. Look, there's probably, Perryman's at the top of my list, just because, I don't really have much else to trade out at the moment. I didn't like a Sanders, Hasty. Whether he stays in or not is probably remains to be seen, but he's someone that, if he can stay in the team, I'm actually really comfortable holding, just because his scoring ability looked to be there. The other the Saints rookies, I'm kind of with, Garcia looks like he's, running on thin ice, likewise with a Max Hall. So those guys I'd be, not looking to trade into. I'm definitely comfortable getting rid of a Garcia. Will Day, that's probably the big one for everyone, which it's one of those positions where I agree, like, you're either trading this week or you're holding. If it was me, I'd probably want to be aggressive and get on the front foot and trade him, whether that's a downgrade to a Nevitt so you can actually get something on the other end. But then you've got to weigh up on the other end, you've got to get the must-have rookies, the Ashcrofts, the Lindsays, they have to come in before anything else. So it's probably team dependent, but if my team allowed for it, I'd definitely be looking to be aggressive and get Will Day out of my team.
Yeah. Well, you raise a good point there, James. And Liam, I'm keen to get your thoughts on this as well. So I'm in this boat, and I'm sure there are a lot of people in this boat as well that have got a Hasty, and they're like, well, he's not going to make a lot of cash now. They want to get the Lindsays, and if they don't have an Ashcroft as well, then obviously that's another story. But even if you want to get a Nevitt and a Lindsay, I think that might be the more common, duo. A lot of people got Ashcroft. They're not as stupid as me and not bringing him in when they had the chance to. Would you be happy to trade a Riley Sanders or a Will Day, pocket 200K, 300K, 350, whatever it is that you've got? Would you be happy to pocket that this week to guarantee these, particularly an Ashcroft and a Lindsay, but then also maybe a Nevitt as well for some people, just to get those guys in, and then you can use that cash next week?
I have no aversion to it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm happy to do that as long as you've got the 3 main rooks that you need.
Yep, I agree. And then final thing before we do get into the trade targets, then we'll get into people's questions. So, Liam, how would you rank Hollands, Sanders, and Will Day in terms of who you would trade out? Because a lot of people are probably looking at one of those 3 down. And when you look at it, you got Sanders didn't have the role. Bont and Treloar are going to come back, and who knows with Bevo. Hollands, at the end of the day, weren't looking for him as much. I think he's still got a little bit unlucky, but that cash didn't stall a little bit. Got Hawks this week, who puts up another sort of 70, 75. He's not going to make a lot of cash, and then that stalled. And then you go to Will Day, who's got Carlton, potential George Hewitt tag, then Bedford, then a bye, then Port Adelaide. So that's a Willem Drew. How would you rank those 3 in terms of who you trade out?
I would be saying that my first choice is Sanders out. It's another one where I wish I'd trusted my gut a little bit more. I didn't like the way that he actually played that in the preseason. He felt like someone who struggled to build a high score. He doesn't accumulate in fantasy relevant ways, or the ways that we'd like to see. And then a close run second is Will Day. I think that the Will Day advantage is that break even is still at 60 versus Sanders, whose break even is at 65. So if we're playing a cash game, I think you can hold Will Day a week. If you still don't like it next week, I think you're more than justified in trading out before he hits Toby Bedford as the tagged player. And then I think Hollands as the cheapest of the trio is third. I still don't think that he's particularly. I don't think he's got a natural half. I think he struggles to know where he's meant to limit his scoring in a number of ways, but I still think he's going to be able to put up an 80 enough that he's not a priority this week.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think Hollands is probably the one that I'm least going. James, how would you rank those three before we get into the trade targets?
Yeah, Holland's definitely third. He actually looked fine to me. I'm not really concerned about his scoring at the moment. He looks well underpriced. I think he can probably push that 90 mark from here on out. So I'm pretty comfortable with Hollands. I don't see him as a trade option at all yet, especially if you've got him. You don't have to trade into him, but I wouldn't be trading him out, especially considering people probably have other priorities. Will Day, I think, is a bigger liability to your team than Sanders, just because he's higher, more expensive than Sanders. So if he doesn't get closer to his break even, you're actually risking more to your side by having him there. And when you combine that with the fact that he's in the midfield line, it just makes it a bigger priority that what you're foregoing on the other side, you're not getting in your team. So I would have it day 1, Sanders 2, Hollands 3. But that's just me.
Yeah. At least we can all agree Hollands is last, but hasn't helped me with if I'm trading Sanders or Day, because one of you guys have gone one, so I'm going to have to keep having to think about those two. But trade targets, Liam, I think obviously we agree that Lindsay and Ashcroft, if you don't have those two, are probably the guys that you need to have. Who would be the next couple of guys that you'd have? Obviously an SDK, a Joel Frazier in defences. Those mid prices could be options for coaches. Then you go into the midfield. You got a Tom Powell. Could you jump on a Jai Caldwell? I know he's got a bye, but could you jump there and have a bit of a pod and cover him with a couple of these rookies that are scoring okay? Obviously, you got then a Lawler and a Camporelli who are a bit cheaper in the midfield. Then you got like a Max Hall in the forward line. And you've also got an Isaac Rankin who looked very, very good. And I'm kicking myself as a Crows fan. I didn't start him. So where would you sort of rank these guys? And obviously, team dependent, right? Depends who you're trading out. But if you could get any, who would you be probably prioritising over the others?
It's a really tough one, because I think that the one trader that we haven't really discussed, and one that I think needs to, because I think he's got a short shelf life, is Connor Stone. A lot of the players, so I think it's O'Halloran, Harvey Thomas and Riccardi, all slated to come back from their suspensions after the bye. And they're basically the same price. And Max Hall has a minus 14 break even. Now, we can have a discussion later about what his job and role security is going to be like, but that's an extremely low BE. I personally think that I'd be more likely to trade into Sam De Koning than Joel Frazier, just because I think that SDK has that incredible matchup this week. People on a lot of the podcasts are like, "Oh, I can't figure out the role. I can't understand what it is." It's really easy. Shannon Neal or Paddy Dangerfield is always going to ruck in the forward line. SDK takes the centre bounces and then takes wing stoppages and some defensive stoppages. And then if he's on the bench, it's Mark Blitzarves chopping and changing and playing the same role. It's really not too hard to understand. I think the big advantage with SDK is it just means that he's higher up the ground on those switches, whereas previously he's been a really, really deep pivot. And I think that means that he's got a great scoring potential against a high transition scoring team in St Kilda versus a Joel Frazier, where I really struggle to understand the thinking of Bevo sometimes, even if I don't question the results in the end, because I think he found the right spot for Joel Frazier. it's just I really hate that half forward line role. He was drifting in off the half forward line, or he was sprinting in off the half back line, but just getting lost. Like I don't think he's a crash and bash player. He is that kind of secondary layer midfielder, often getting the handball receives, not really crashing in for tackles and trying to get those ground balls himself. Or maybe it's been kind of half shoveled out and he's trying to get that ground ball then. But he's not a player who crashes in really easily and benefits massively from that streaming in role. So I think that SDK is probably my number one mid-price at a target. And then, I personally preference Nod over Nevitt just because I don't trust Nevitt's spot. I don't trust Nevitt's spot in the side, and I would not be shocked, even after a great game this week, if Jai Clark is in and Nevitt is the sub.
Yep. Yeah, Geelong do some different things. So I do agree with that as well. Plenty of good points there. James, anything to add with the trade targets there from your end?
Nah, I kind of concur. Like Nod is definitely my number one given price. He looks to have the best role. Third in line at CBAs. That's pretty fruitful for anyone, I would have thought. But when you take into account, what is he priced at now? Like 470 or 480 or something. That's way cheaper than a Fraser. That's way cheaper than a De Koning. Like it's so much less risky to your team. It's going to allow you to have cash on the other end, most likely. So it seems like that's a much more viable pick, even if the other guys maybe average slightly more, which I do think De Koning can average slightly more in that role and Fraser can average slightly more. It's probably not enough considering the difference.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Definitely. Cool. Let's get into a heap of these questions. Plenty of flying through in the live chat, so keep sending them through and we'll get to as many as we can and before we hit the hour mark of the show. But we've got a super chat here from Chris to start off. Thank you very much, Chris, for sending this through. So, James, I'll go to you for this one. Dayan Garcia to Levi Ashcroft and Tom Powell, or Perryman and Joe Berry to SDK and Levi Ashcroft?
Oof. Geez, this is a blind ball for me. I'm probably number two slightly, just because Berry doesn't look like he's going to be a scorer. I'm pretty sure that he's going to be playing, 15 plus games for Port this year. Like they want him in there, in that, forward pocket kind of running up the wings position. But I just can't see him averaging much more than 50, if that. Like he does seem like he's a 40s guy. So for cash generation's sake, I'm pretty comfortable with number two.
The one thing I'd ask you just about that with Berry, he's got Richmond this week. If he's ever going to get a big score and get back on track, it could be this week. And he was on 38 at halftime of this game. Obviously, he only had 2 points in the second half when Collingwood really sort of kept pushing that margin out. Would that factor in at all, or do you think still you'd be happy to trade off instead?
It's notable, but I think if it was a different position, like if it was a wing role or a half back role, I'd be much more happy to do it. The fact that he's, just a forward pocket kind of thing, that's, even if he scores well this week, there's nothing to say he's going to score a 20 the week after, and then what you thought was going to be a good run, it's just dead in the water. You've just delayed yourself a week and you've missed out on cash generation from someone else.
Yeah, exactly. And at the end of the day, Perryman's got to buy. You get rid of him, you don't have to deal with him. And worst case, you can always go Will Day to Tom Powell next week because they're not going to be that far apart. And you get to look at Tom Powell again because at the end of the day, did play Bulldogs with no Bont, no Treloar. So you could get a little bit more of a look there. So no, I like that. So cool. Keep going through these questions here. So Figsy Mano's got this question, Liam. So he's saying, hey, boys, is Wicks to Max Hall and Day to Petrarca good trades? I save 100K, or do I go Perryman to SDK and bank 327K? So I'm assuming Wicks to Max Hall is the one he's doing. So you're going Day to Petrarca, or are you going Perryman to SDK?
Oh, that is a tough one. Look, if this is someone that also doesn't have Lindsay, then I'll sign off on the Max Hall trade. So Powell, like I think I might lean towards Day out over Perryman, because I think that Day just it's going to have a much harder time getting to the top of his line. And I feel like his days are numbered. I can see a reclamation project for Perryman more than I can see it for Day.
Yeah. And he thinks he did say, he's already got Lindsay and Ashcroft. So, I do like that. And Petrarca's got a very nice run coming up as well. So that's also another good thing. And he looked pretty solid, even with a Bedford tag that was sort of a little bit on and off in that game there. Digby Luckhurst Smith, James, has got this question. Assuming all named and not sub, who is the priority trade out? Hasty, Wicks, or Garcia? Who is the priority in? Lindsay, Nevitt, or O'Driscoll?
I think this one's a bit easier. Garcia out, Lindsay in. If you can make that work with DPP, I don't know how, but Garcia's got the most cash on his head. Doesn't look like he's got the most job security, and Lindsay looks like he's going to make the most cash.
Yeah, I agree. Lindsay's the one that you got to be getting there. And Digby followed up saying, out of Sam Taylor and Perryman, who goes first for SDK? Would you still obviously that's maybe a second trade. Would you be doing one of those two to SDK, or do you think maybe you could go get an O'Driscoll and trade a Hasty out if you can make that work, or a Wicks or something like that?
I think the way I play the game, I'd be trading out Taylor there, but I know you listen to Lemon's philosophies, who's a hell of a coach. Like, he knows what he's doing. He'll play it completely different, and he gets very good results. So, but for me personally, I'm aggressive, maximize points on field, and I'd be trading Taylor.
Yeah, I like it. Sean had this comment, and I did see this floating around on the Twitter sphere before we went live. Adam Chera training with the defenders at training today, one to watch. So that's for any Adam Chera owners, just to watch tomorrow night to see if that's the case. There obviously didn't look very good coming out of the back half. And if he is training in defence and does play there with a Walsh and Doherty maybe coming to 22, you sort of wonder who in that defence is going to fall out. Could be a Cowan, who I pretty much called for his head on Sunday, and then on the Thursday night watch, I found I was tuning into that. So definitely a watch there. Maybe Nick Haynes as well, who wasn't too great, unfortunately, for Carlton. Jerry Davies says, Liam here, Hasty to Lindsay and Holland to Nevitt, to Nevitt. Or actually, I'll put this one on the screen because there's three different ones. This will be a bit easier. So Hasty to Lindsay and Holland to Nevitt, or Hollands to Lindsay and Taylor Stewart, or Hollands, Lindsay, everyone. So you're going, no, hang on. It's confusing. But yeah, Liam, where would you go for the trades? Reading on the screen there.
I think it's between 1 and 3. I am also actively considering Sanders to Rankin. But I do think it's Hasty to Lindsay and Holland to Nevitt if you want to kickstart your cash gen, and you're happy to sell a little early on Holland. Holland's just because, as you talk about with Chera, I don't think Michael Voss knows what's best for his team at the moment. Sam Doherty looked incredible for one quarter. Bales, I'm going to have to disagree with you there. Lockie Cowan should not be getting dropped. He was more than good one-on-one. And Ollie Hollands' problem is he runs past the ball handler all the time, and he runs away from space, and he doesn't know how far 15 metres is. And so everyone goes, people missed him with kicks. It was outrageous. No, he's standing 12 metres away. He doesn't know where he's meant to be. I implore people to think about it less as, this bloke's missed. Mitch McGovern misses a kick to him because he's like, Ollie, you're not far enough away from me. Like, I can't kick it to you. And then he hesitates and ends up kicking it over his head for that exact reason. So I'm okay trading Hollands, and I think Chera training in defence speaks to some uncertainty.
And there was the two of them, right? The two ones where McGovern kicked it to him. One where he missed it, obviously, where there was one was worried, a little bit of a bad kick, but obviously I agree with that Holland's doing that. But then there was the other one where Hollands ran way too close to McGovern, and McGovern kicked it, and it was play on because it went 10 metres. So I do agree with that as well, with those points there. But at the time, Hollands ain't getting points. Cowan's butchering the ball. I'm saying Hollands needs to be dropped, but no, you do make a good point, and I probably wouldn't be. James says,
Bales, one sec there. So Liam, what have you got Hollands averaging from here out?
I think he averages roughly similar to what Adam Sard can do. I think it's about 80.
Oh, geez, because I back in your judgment. You know how to read the game very well. Like I've listened to you a fair bit, and that's just one where we differ. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
And I'll say that like I have been in a few group chats with some people that also know football, and I'd say the opinion is split 50-50. Like there are some people that are with me that feel like he's not a natural halfback, and there are others who go, I saw enough in that second half, and I don't disagree. He definitely had some great moments. I think the other problem comes from he plays the game same as Adam Sard and doesn't benefit as a result because there's another bloke doing the same things he would do. If he was doing it on by himself, I actually think he could be a 92, 93 type player and even exceed what Sard is capable of.
Yeah, no, good points there.
Cool.
IT's got this one, James. Taylor to SDK or Hasty to Lindsay. So you're holding Taylor for a week on the bench, which you can loop if you've got a trainer and a Zach Reed, or you're going Hasty to Lindsay.
I'd be pretty comfortable doing either. It depends what you're doing on the other end of it. Textbook is probably saying Hasty to Lindsay, but I always, like I say, I always come back to points on field, and that's leaning towards a Taylor to an SDK. So I'd be comfortable doing both trades if you can, like as your 2 trades for the week, and then banking a little bit of cash, or if you can, and do something the next week after, seeing how it works out. If I had to pick one, I'd probably go Hasty to Lindsay.
Yeah, I'll probably lean there as
Lindsay's going to more likely to get away from you.
That's right. Yeah.
So I saw on the obviously the AFL fantasy app that if Lindsay scores a 70, he makes about 70-ish K. And we saw last week the 94. I'm convinced if it wasn't raining, he would have turned up. He slowed down when the weather came. I think that he could have hurt a lot more for those people that didn't start him. So he could realistically go up 75, 80, 90K this week. So yeah, I think he's the guy you probably need to get in. Tony Ford's got this one, Liam. Thoughts on Lockie Ash down to SDK and Perryman up to Wang?
Look, I much prefer calling him Naziah than that nickname. Yeah, I'm all for it. I thought Naz still looks like that main distributor. I just wonder if that's the time. This is the time of year to make that trade, particularly for a St Kilda team that I don't know about you, Shuckers, but I just hate trading into a player coming out of a horrendous loss. I just feel really uncomfortable with feeling as though that the same game plan is going to get rolled out again. So I don't hate it on a player level. I just query it on a strategic level if now's the time of year to be making that kind of reshuffle in your side.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. Like, in theory, the trades work, but without seeing old mate's team, like I'm sure there's something more pressing to the line. I don't like trading into a big loss either if the player's done well. But I'm actually looking at bringing in a Horn Francis this week just because I really don't have an obvious trade in my team at this point in time. And he's coming off a big loss, but I am expecting a Port rebound, especially against the Tigers. And I can see Horn Francis one be putting in a big score because of it, if that makes sense. So I'm looking at it from the other spectrum because he hasn't performed and they need to do something different.
Yeah, I could see Port having a big win on the weekend. That's for sure. Chris Gow's got this question, James. Prioritise selling Perryman, Hasty, Day, and Taylor. How would you rank those four? Obviously, we talked a little bit about Day and Taylor before, but how would you rank those 4 outs?
Perryman, Hasty, Day, and Taylor. I would probably have Taylor 1, Day 2, Perryman 3, and Hasty 4. Yeah, I think that's how I would have it. I don't know. Do you boys agree?
I just think Hasty's dependent on if he's selected. I think he could move anywhere up and down that line. I think if we get some better certainty on his role, I think he can definitely score when he's in the team. So you could definitely hold him as a slower burn just because he's kind of stunted his cash down a little bit with that sub out this week. But he was basement priced anyway, so he still beat his break even. But beyond that, yeah, I agree with the rankings.
Yeah. The only reason I don't like trading out a Hasty, and it depends on who you're going to, but if you're bringing in, another 230K who's getting debuted this week, what's to say they're going to be dropped in, round 3 anyway? And then you're in the same position and you've wasted a trade.
Yeah, exactly. Some could say you might be a bit hasty trading out Hasty. So shout out to Luke again. I'm always going to shout out Luke for those ones there.
Very nice,
yeah, thank you. Papa Rondad, Liam says, thoughts on Garcia to Jack Silvani. So one we didn't talk about, looked pretty good, but did move forward and they lost. Do you see it a bit risky that he could move forward because he looked like a very good target? Or do you think because Charlie Curnow's back this week, do you have a little bit more confidence trading in Silvani knowing he's got a low break even?
I don't love trading into Silvani. I think the fact that he was thrown forward does not speak well for his prospects of staying in defence. And he's playing a game in defence against the easiest team to score transition points against. I would not be touching that. I think you could, if you had really nothing else, you could say play it off as the ride the break even train and raise cash for 2 weeks. But don't be shocked if he's playing half a game forward in 2 or 3 weeks and he scored 45. So it's just not a player that I want to go near.
Yeah, I agree. Correde Aeon Rinde, I hope I've got that right. Apologies if I haven't. James, he's saying Sanders to Rankin or Hasty to Nevitt or Max Hall?
Sanders to Rankin, Hasty to Nevitt, or what was the last one?
Max Hall.
Max Hall. Yeah. Again, I don't know why. I just get the feeling Max Hall is not going to be there in a couple of weeks' time, probably when all the Saints players are coming back from injuries. Like, he's the one probably decent rookie that I've missed out on, but I still don't feel comfortable targeting him just for job security reasons. Like, in that role, he's going to have weeks where he can do 70 or 80, but he's going to have weeks where he can drop a 30 as well. So when you combine that with the fact that I think the job security is low, it's not a rookie that I want to be targeting. So I'm pretty comfortable going Sanders up to a Rankin there. But again, like we were talking about before, is it the time of the year to be doing that unless your team has, got no other major fix-ups? Like, it's definitely an upgrade doing that trade. It kind of leaves me to the one to Nevitt. What was the one to Nevitt?
Hasty to Nevitt.
Yeah, I'll take that off out of the 3.
So you go Hasty to Nevitt over Sanders to Rankin?
I think so, yeah. What about you, Liam? What do you call?
Yeah, this is the thing. I think the thing that we're not discussing with Max Hall is, 2 things. One, I mentioned it earlier, he's got a break-even of -14. So as much as we hate wasting a trade to trade him in, he is on a gravy-making train pretty quickly. And I think that's why I might be a little bit more bullish on it. And I think that the comments as well from Ross Lyon saying, I think it was in the presser, like, we've uncovered somebody here. I think he's better than Dan Butler. And I think Dan Butler's the type of player that he keeps out of the side. But if it really then comes down to, well, what's your structure of your midfield like? Because if you're looking to be running 2 mids on field or you're going to be relying on a Foss to be on field, then I might lean towards Nevitt as the option. Again, he had a great score, and I feel that might be able to sustain him in your side for 3 to 4 weeks and make enough cash. But that probably then comes down to a bit of team composition and team balance questions. I'm kind of looking at Sanders to Rankin because I have some concerns about Sanders' position in the side in general in the coming weeks, but that then might come down to selection in injury lists. So I might lean in giving others advice towards Nevitt as the option to trade in.
Yeah. I think I'm Sanders to Rankin. I really like what I saw from Rankin on the weekend. And I feel like Dawson playing as well as he did could only be a good thing for an Isaac Rankin, because you argue that maybe Dawson's the guy you're going to tag, and I thought it was originally going to be Rankin, but the way Dawson played on the weekend, but then I guess is Dawson harder to tag, obviously, because Windy still couldn't even, he stopped him for a quarter, but Dawson was still able to do well, and Rankin's still priced at 839k as well. He only went up to 20k, so he's still at a fairly cheap price, still priced around, I guess, 82-ish priced at. So, yeah, I like that trade. But Hasty to Nevitt for the cash gen as well could be the path you go. So, tough one there, Karate, but yeah, don't mind it at all. Ryan Thomas has got this question, Liam, and I'm keen to get your thoughts because this is very similar to what I'm looking at doing. He's like, would you tick off these trades? Sanders down to Ashcroft, then moving Garcia to the forward line and upgrading a rookie on the bench for Lindsay, or upgrade Taylor to SDK. So I guess Sanders to Ashcroft's probably the one you've probably got to do. But would you be doing, I guess, it could be a Hasty or one of these other rookies that you're not confident in to a Lindsay, or are you doing Taylor to SDK?
I would be flipping this around completely. I'd be going Taylor to Ashcroft and then Hasty to Lindsay, and then dusting off your hands and then thinking getting rid of Sanders and Day and Perriman next week. Make sure you're getting in those rookies that have got really low break-evens and good job security. I think SDK could have a great score this week, but then after that, he's got a tough run. I don't think he's a must-have. I don't think Joel Frazier's a must-have, and I don't think, trading out Sanders is a requirement.
Yeah. I guess if you can't go Taylor, though, to an Ashcroft with the DPP, where would you sit there then?
Yeah, that's true. I guess I bought in Taylor, but I made sure that I had 3 defenders. So Taylor's sitting in my utility. No. I went Pryor, Reed, and what's his name? Trainer. So yeah, I'm personally got that flexibility. I think that if we're playing the kind of break-even game with SDK, I think there's a very comfortable world where you bring in SDK for 3 weeks, and then we'll have Callum Mills and Kitty Coleman to choose from by the time that his cash generation is finished. And let's say he scores a 90 or something this week, and then has a couple of 50s. I think he's still comfortably over 700k by the time you get to round 6 and 7. So if that pushes you in the direction of doing Taylor to SDK, I don't mind.
Yeah, but obviously if you didn't have the DPP, though, would you still be doing the upgrade to Lindsay, as you mentioned, though, to get those rookies to make that cash gen? Yeah,
absolutely. Like that should take primacy over almost anything. It's a 24-week season. That 400k we might be able to make off of Lindsay. And same goes for Ashcroft. And the time they'll be able to spend in your side is far more important than an upgrade of maybe 10 to 15 points on field.
Yeah, agreed. And that's exactly where I'm leaning, Ryan. And I've got the exact same dilemma that you've got as well. So, yeah, I'd be leaning there. And I guess the positive for us is that we get Taylor will be a looper to loop Trainer and Reed, in the hopes that one of them can pop an 80 or a 90 somehow, and hope that they can count in our best 18. But likely thing is they're not going to. Reed's got Crows, Trainer's got Port, both very restrictive sides for defenders. So I'm not sure we're going to get a good score, but who knows? Who knows in fantasy, that's for sure. Because we've got so many questions, we'll do a bit of rapid fire. We'll go a sentence and then the answer as well. So we'll smash through a heap of these as we go. So the next one here comes from Lobo the Pro, James. Don't have any of SDK, Ashcroft or Lindsay. Who is the most important to get in? Is it still those 2 rookies, Ashcroft and Lindsay?
Yep. Definitely get them in.
Yep. Next one, Liam, comes from Zach Howes. Moving Taylor to SDK. Out of Day, Hollands, Chera, who gets the downgrade to Levi Ashcroft?
Look, I think I'm tossing up between Day and Hollands, and given the discussion we've previously had, I think you could move off Day and give yourself maximum ability to upgrade next week. But I personally think it's nearly a 50-50 in my mind.
Yeah,
and I wouldn't be touching Chera just yet. I think he's got a longer leash off the 90.
Yeah, exactly. And who knows if he's playing defence, you never know, might be okay. So you can probably hold it for another week. He's going to make hopefully a little bit more cash there. What do we got here? Next one. Karen Shanahan's got this one. James, is it worth trading out Day and bringing in Jack Ross?
Nah, I'd stay away from that. In the Tigers, they probably had their one win of the year. Just that's probably his best score for the year. I'd say. I'd find someone else.
Yeah, and he didn't have many CBAs either, so it's not like he had this midfield role and CBA role and scored well. So yeah, I agree. Icebreaker 333, Liam. Anyone else trading out Leak? I don't have enough cash to get Taylor to anyone good and think Leak gets dropped or gets the best. Problem is, who do you get for him? I've got O'Connell at the moment, but not confident. Do you think Leak is a guy that you have to trade? Liam, you there? Oh, James, can you hear Liam, or is it just me?
No, I can't hear. I think
Yeah. Where would you go,
Leak,
James?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here he goes.
Oh, we got some
He's
internet
muted.
Internet difficulties.
Yeah, I
That's
think
what happens when we're live streaming. So, James, who would you go?
I think Leak does have to go. I'd be very keen and interested to see if O'Reilly buys his names, because that could be a potential juicy swing for a month.
So he's got obviously the buy. The Bice has got the buy in round 3. If he's named in the 22 this week, would you be happy to jump on him even though he's got a buy and you've got a Mills and stuff back in after the buy? Or do you think it could be a play that, okay, maybe you want to trade Leap, but maybe you hold him for a week, see how Bice goes, and then bring Bice, potentially go Leap to Bice in round 4?
Depending on what he's doing with the other trade, if he can only get Leak to someone who's 250, I'd be comfortable to do it. If you can get up to a trainer, I'd prefer to do that. Zach Reed, likewise. Actually, Zach Reed's probably pretty cheap. I'd probably go Zach Reed before him, but I mean, I'm just assuming he's got him. But if he's got Leaky and O'Connell, that makes it tough as well. So, yeah,
So
probably go Zach Reed.
Reed's 264, and trainer, if he doesn't have him, is 308. So still both fairly cheap, but obviously trying a little bit more of a jump. But yeah, might already have a Zach Reed. So interesting one there, icebreaker, whether you go for that or not. Because if you can't get Taylor anyone good, maybe get him in SDK or Fraser, but obviously maybe you can't do that. So actually, would you if he didn't have James, because I can't imagine that he's got Pryor, Reed, trainer, and Leak unless he's gone really, really light in defence. Could you go down to a Pryor who I know he scored a 62, but could you go down to a Pryor instead from Taylor and have that bit of cash in the bank?
You could. I mean, but I'd prefer to go all the way down, make another 80, 100K to use on something else, just because it feels like they're going to be scoring pretty similarly anyway.
Yeah. Fevelenko, Liam, I think we've got Liam back saying here he's going Will Ashcroft down to Levi Ashcroft and Sam Taylor to Xavier Lindsay, banking 730K. I don't know about you. I couldn't in good conscience be trading at Will Ashcroft when he's got this good run. Would you be agreeing with that?
Yeah, I agree with that one. I think that's a bit beyond the pale for me. 700K, it's too many points in the bank.
Yeah, I'm sure that you've got a Hollins or another guy in the midfield that you'd be trading over Will Ashcroft. I was keen on Will Ashcroft. I know he didn't have a great game, but Sydney at the SCG is not a great matchup. And besides Josh Dunkley, all of the Brisbane midfielders didn't score well. And Levi Ashcroft didn't play midfield. He played obviously half forward and wing. But McCluggage had a bad game. Obviously, Neil had a bad game. Obviously, we knew that the Jordan tag was going to go to him. So I think that better days are ahead for Will Ashcroft and for the other Lions mid. So, yeah, I'll be keeping him and finding another way to get Ashcroft and Lindsay in. But I do agree that they're the two guys that you do need to be getting. So Sean's got this one, James. Both trades get me Lindsay. Would you go Pryor to Fraser or Hugo Garcia to Isaac Rankin?
Probably Garcia to Rankin.
I agree. I'll just agree with that.
Top of his line.
top 6 or top 8 at least forward there. So I'd be doing that as well. Jake has got this one, Liam. He says, I've got all of Sanders, Day, Hollands, and Perryman, but only rookie I need to bring in is Lindsay. Which of these 4 higher priced players would you downgrade to get Lindsay and a mid-priced option in another line?
It's a weird way of thinking about that conundrum.
Probably just a restructure, I guess.
Yeah, it is a bit of a restructure. So he's got all of Day, Hollands, Perryman, and Sanders. Was that right?
Yes, yep, those 4.
And you'd need to do a downgrade, right, in order to get Lindsay.
He's probably got all those midfielder spots, so he's probably got to go one of those guys out, or he's obviously talking about a Perryman. Obviously, be interesting to see what the DPP is with that, but
yeah, I think that there's definitely a case to be made for a midfielder out, just because I think we've got enough players, rookies at least, who can fill that scoring void.
Yeah, if you had to choose between the 3, is it Sanders? Obviously, you said that before.
Yeah, I think it could definitely be Sanders for my mind. I think he's got the greatest likelihood to be dropped or to lose points.
Yeah. Actually, Johnny Test's got this question. I'll go, Liam, back to you. But obviously, you being the Eston man. He's asking, does Zach Reed's score on Saturday dictate anything for you guys in the defensive line if Reed goes 75 plus? What are your thoughts with Zach Reed obviously coming against the Crows, who obviously are restrictive for defenders? What are your thoughts there? I'm assuming that's in relation to maybe a Sam Taylor trade.
I don't think it's going to impact it too much. I would absolutely anticipate a 50 or 60 from Reed this week. I think there's definitely a world where Pryor could see a little boost with Ridley out with concussion. He definitely had a scoring boost in the second half. But I don't think it's necessarily going to dictate too much in my backline. I don't think that... So I would expect that Reed is going to play on Thilthorpe. Or actually, no, Mackay on Thilthorpe, and then Reed's probably trying to follow Fogarty or Tex Walker. So probably spends a lot of time inside D50. I don't think it's going to be a massive score this week.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Reed will probably play a little bit tall this week because we saw in the first half he was almost floating around and got these +6s, but when Ridley was out of the game in the second half, he scored 14 points. So that's the worry for me. I think the role was better when Ridley wasn't concussed. Uncle Deja's got this one, James. He's saying Garcia to Ashcroft or Lindsay. So clearly he can't get both, or he's got another trade in mind. If you could only pick one of Levi Ashcroft or Lindsay, who would you be going?
Ashcroft is number 1.
Yeah, agreed. He could go big against West Coast this week. So I would be agreeing with that one. Jake's got this question here. Liam, thoughts on Connor Stone to Xavier Lindsay and Will Day to Nathan O'Driscoll? Obviously banking a little bit of cash. Obviously Day to Nod, but you've got to have a little bit of money to go Stone to Lindsay. Would you tick those 2 off?
Yep. I think that's super solid. I've got no issues with it.
Yeah. James, HJD has got this one. Tick off Will Day to Tom Powell and Taylor to SDK if it means missing Never and Nod.
Yep, I think I'm okay with it. As long as you've got the rookies.
Yeah, well, I'm assuming he does because he's not mentioning either. So,
yeah.
What have we got this one here? A lot of questions here we have answered, so just scrolling through these here. Scott Ramadan has got this one, Liam, saying, hey, lads, who would you guys go? Hollands and Day to Never... Hang on. Holland/Day to Never or... Oh, yeah, sorry. No, I got it right. Sorry, hang on. Going one of Hollands or Day to Nevitt or Sanders to Rankin?
Oh, I think it's Sanders to Rankin for my mind, just because as much as I think Nevitt can be someone you trade in, it's not someone that I'm confident in staying in the team week to week or being able to avoid the sub-vest. Particularly, and I haven't had a chance after footy training to check the injury reports, but I'm curious to see kind of what Geelong's situation is, particularly for Tanner Bruin if we're going to get anything from him and if he's going to play. So I think I lean more towards Sanders to Rankin.
Yeah, I agree. Lauren Lante says, Bales, I need your help. I can't get Lindsay because of cash and DPP. Shall I go Will Day to Xavier Lindsay and Sam Taylor to Nasai Wangani Miller, miss out on SDK, or go Hasty to Hall and Taylor to SDK? I would do the Day to Lindsay trade, and whether Nasai Wangani Miller is the guy you bring in, obviously missing an SDK, I'd almost rather go Day to Lindsay Taylor to SDK, bank that cash and use that next week. Because you're getting two guys are going to make a lot of cash, and look at it as though Taylor is a maxed out rookie and go to a mid pricer there, and Day to Lindsay getting the guy that's going to go up a lot more, and yeah, lock those in. Are you guys both agreeing with that? Or would you maybe guys go for a Nasai Wangani Miller or a Max Holmes or a Tom Stewart or someone like that?
Nah, not yet. We don't know if those three guys are going to be, top 6 or close to the top of their line yet. Just seems like too big a risk. Like, I'm pretty confident Nasai will be. The other two, you can make a case for either way. But if you are going to bring in like a premium in a line, you just want to make sure that they're going to be there for the whole year.
Yep, I like it. Arham77 Liam, he's asking, is Layla a must-have? Went Hall, Ashcroft, and Camperelli as my mid-rookies. So if you got them there, you probably don't have a Lindsay. But I guess where do you see a Lawler in this discussion? Because he obviously didn't have the CBAs, he kicked a couple of goals, but I feel like that those goals, if he doesn't kick 2 goals, I feel like that he may get a little bit more CBA work in the next few weeks as he sort of works back to some match fitness there.
Yeah, he's Harley Reid from last year, but without the forward status to make him a must-have. So I think you can comfortably pass on him. I think he'll get some mid-time. He'll definitely have some pop scores, but I'm not chasing him over a Lindsay, particularly when we know that Josh Smiley is someone that Richmond is going to try and integrate into that team relatively quickly, and he's probably more of a natural midfielder than Lawler is.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, Lawler will probably get forward status around 6, but at the end of the day, he's not playing him on field, I don't think. So, yeah, I agree. I don't think he's a must-have, but if you've got him, he'll make a little bit of cash there as well. Sam Watts, James has got this one. I've already got Lindsay, Ashcroft, Hall, SDK, Nod, and Fraser. Well, if that's not a flex, I don't know what is. And I'm very, very jealous of not having all those guys. But it is very similar to James to what you've got. So he's saying, is Data, Never, and Sanders to Rankin good trades? And would you tick those 2 off?
Sorry, just cut out there for a sec. Say those options again.
Data, Never, and Sanders to Rankin, those 2 trades. Would you be ticking those 2 off?
Yeah, I think I would if you've got those all those cash generators. I'm pretty comfortable with it.
Yep, Sam, I'm very jealous of your team. And people on Sunday were offering their login details, mate. I would consider your login details if you have them on hand. Ben Hayes has got this one. Sweet. Oh, no, that wasn't a question. It's just a comment for someone else there. Bailey Miller's got this one, Liam. Trade Leakin Garcia to Ashcroft and Trainer, or Taylor to SDK instead. Who do you prioritise out of Lindsay or Ashcroft? So a couple of questions there. We'll first deal with the combos there. So I'll put it up on the screen for it to be a bit easier for you to see as well.
League and Garcia to Ashcroft Trainer or Taylor SDK instead. I don't know where the Lindsay part of it comes into it, but I think I'd prefer to go Ashcroft and Trainer. Right, so trade Leak plus Garcia to Ashcroft / Trainer, right? I think that's the option I prefer.
Yeah, I agree, because Leak's got to go. Yeah, and if you don't have Trainer, he's going to make some decent cash. So I'd agree with that. And we said before, Ashcroft is the guy that we would prefer out of the 2 guys there. So MMA fan asking about our trades. We'll touch on those just before we finish up. We've got a couple of minutes to go before we do finish up. Yeah, I've answered a few of these here. Jeff Stevens, James, who was the one that offered login details. He's saying, Buzz, let James English know that I'm 4 spots behind and I'm coming. So there you go. I guess it's a warning there. So, James, any response?
Yeah, I mean, good luck. Like, there's a high likelihood I'll be ranked 5,000 by the end of next week. So I'd say enjoy it while you're in the top 100.
Yeah, exactly. Enjoy it because you could be like me at 22,000. So, what do we got? Andrew Domahidi Liam's got this one. Harry Perryman to SDK and Peatling to Lindsay. Would you be happy to? Well, firstly, what were your thoughts on Peatling, and would you be happy to go down to all the way there to get Lindsay and have? I guess you'd have like 400 odd K in the bank, right?
Yeah, my thoughts on Peatling are, as I went into the preseason, I thought that it was a logjam midfield and he was the most likely player to miss out. And I questioned why he ever chose Adelaide as the team to go to in the first place.
I'm happy you did.
So yeah, I'd tick off those trades.
Yeah, I would as well. And I am very happy that Peatling did decide to choose Adelaide. Tony Ford's got this one, James. If Nevitt was to score 80 plus again this week, would he still be an option next week?
Bales, do some quick maths. Tell me how much he would go up if he did that.
So if Nevitt was to score, so it says on the app here that if Mitch Nevitt scores 43 this week, he'll make 35K. I'll say roughly if he scores an 80, he'll go up about 65, 70K roughly, maybe around there. So he'd still be about that 550, 540 range.
Okay, so let's call it an average of price at maybe 52, 53. If he's about that price, he's probably still pickable. If you can think he can average 80, I'd be comfortable to go in there. If you thought he was going to do a 70 from there on out, then I'd find someone else.
Yeah, that's a good, very good point. I like that. Andrew Goose has got this one, Liam. Wicks or Garcia to Lindsay. I've got all the rookies all the other rookies, and then who goes first, Data, Powell, or Perryman to SDK. So firstly, that first one, Wicks or Garcia to Lindsay?
Wicks. Just like I think at the very least I can spell a narrative where Garcia gets his way under the blanket. If there's a bit of a reshuffle or a bit of an improvement in his role, and he's given more license to be that first wave kind of inside tackling midfielder versus Wicks, who I've talked. I don't know if I've actually talked about it on any podcast specifically yet, but he fails to meet the 3-to-1 ratio, which you want to see from defenders, which is he fails to average 3 disposals for every one of his intercept possessions, and not many players can average above 80 or get close to 80 doing that. So that's where I lean on that first one. And then I think we've kind of talked about it. Was it Day to, who was it? Was it Powell?
Tom Powell, yeah, or Perryman.
I think that's a perfectly acceptable trade. I think if you're set for the other rookies, I'd be more than happy to tick that off. I think SDK and Perryman, like, I know there was the poll going around from Roy about would you be shocked if it was 100 for Perryman and 50 for SDK this week? I'd be shocked if it was 50 for SDK, but I wouldn't be shocked if it's 100 for Perryman. So I think you can ride that for a week longer, and you do have the ability to assess when he gets to his buy, and if he is starting to lose cash, you're actually insulated from that for an extra week.
Yeah. Tim Ashworth put another super chat here saying, would you trade Nod to Ashcroft and Taylor SDK? Well, I would not be trading Nod out because he's obviously one that we're looking to bring in. So if you don't have Levi Ashcroft, there'd be other guys that I'd be trading before him. But Taylor SDK, I'm definitely ticking off. So I'd be happy enough to do that. I reckon we'll go 2 more questions here as we wrap up. We're going for a fair bit, but there is still plenty of questions coming through. And a lot of them we have sort of touched on in a way, and it's just a lot of real combos just for people now. So I will go with Kenny Powers. Liam says, should we give Day a week or 2 to prove himself? We've seen the ceiling, and if the floor is a 70 when he's being double tagged, I'm somewhat optimistic. So obviously got the Redmond and Durham tag. I do expect they would Ridley out Redmond to play back. So if anyone's going to tag, it'll probably be Durham. Would you agree with that? And what are your thoughts on will Day a guest for a week or 2?
I know that we've been talking about it, and we don't think that he's going to be someone that hangs around for a long time. I think that he's not an absolute priority trade out. He's not a killing, a burning black hole in your team that needs to go. He's not putting up 20s. I still think, though, that it's just a little bit of time before he finds his way around a tag. Sam Durham, I die every time someone says Durham. It kills me. No, it's okay. You're one of about 50 podcasters who does it. They're not exactly like the world's biggest clampers as taggers. So I think it's just an experience thing for Day. And I also wouldn't be shocked if Sam Mitchell's going to find some ways to be able to free him up. It's not a problem that his midfielders have really run into when they've come into good form. And so I think that he's shown himself to be a master tactician. So I think that there's a narrative for Day's improvement as much as I'm not hot on him being under the blanket at the top of the midfielders line.
Yeah. Beautiful. And we will finish off with this one. Super chat from Tony Ford. So thanks, mate, for sending this through. Go to James, this one. This is, you've obviously got Rankin and you're looking at Horne-Francis. But if you were to choose between Hornbag and Rankin, who are you picking?
I think to average more for the year, I'll say the Hornbag, but by 1.5 points. So I'd be pretty comfortable picking Rankin out of the two now, and then Sanders is about 50 piles of shit below both of them.
Yes. Yep. I'd be trading Sanders to one of those two. And I feel like I keep wanting to pick just Horne-Francis just because I don't want to put the moz on Rankin and get him in, because I know as soon as I get him in, he's not going to be good, unfortunately. But maybe both are great. Very, very hard to split. Liam, how would you split them?
I'll be splitting them on the fact that Rankin's substantially cheaper.
It's a good point. Yeah, actually, yeah, do that. Very good point.
Yeah.
Lobo the Pro, she said, "Hey, Bells, does the Patreon allow for private messages?" Yes, it does. If you're a Patreon member, yep, you can message me there if you have any other questions that weren't answered tonight, or just any other general questions as well. Team reviews and all that sort of stuff are in there. So if you want to do that, feel free to do that. But I will finish off with this one. Ball Boys, AFL Fantasy, saying, every time I go to sit down to edit, you're bloody live again. Love the hustle, mate. Got to get us on the pod soon. I need to nick some of that wisdom of yours. Well, very much appreciate that. Mitch or Luke, whichever ball boy that is. I'm assuming probably Luke, but very much appreciate it. And obviously, mate, we'd love to get you on the pod again at some point. So I'm sure we can make something work there as well. So cool. And that's where we'll finish up, but we will answer, as MMA fan asked before, saying, what are we currently thinking with our trades? So Liam, I'll start with you. We're obviously only 24 hours since lockout lifted, so maybe you haven't got a great, maybe you're sort of thinking a few options, but what are you currently thinking with your trades at this moment?
Oh, look, I've ummed and ahed. My biggest question is what to do with Jack Henderson, which is a name that we've not mentioned all night, and I'm part of a relatively select crew that's picked him. I think the main thing I'm going to be doing is getting rid of Sam Taylor and bringing in Xavier Lindsay in some capacity. My other question is, do I find a way to bring in SDK? Do I bring in Mitch Nevitt, or do I look to do Sanders up to Rankin?
Yep. No, I like it, mate. Very, very good trades there. James, what are you currently looking at with your trade plans?
I'm probably leaning, I haven't locked anything in and I'm waiting for teams, but I'm probably looking at moving on a Perryman, and I am looking at a Horne-Francis to come in through a Hugo Garcia. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to make that work. I'm weighing up a Mitch Nevitt to come in to the midfield as well, but I really am not sure. I'm lacking a bit of DPP about how I can make this all work, so it's probably going to need a bit of creativity come Thursday night teams, I think.
Yeah. All I'm hearing is there might be a chance that I might be able to catch up to you, mate. So let's see how we go. Aiden Shepherd just said this one. Well, can I wait another week on Lindsay there as well? Just thought we touched on that a little bit before, but obviously he's going to potentially make 7K. So you can, but I'd probably try and make it almost a priority to get them in, because he could make a lot of cash. And if he goes 100, that's a lot of cash there. So I'll try and get him in. My trades, so I've got it. I'm the idiot that didn't start Levi Ashcroft, so I have to get him in, and I've got to get Xavier Lindsay in. So I'm probably going a Sanders or a Day down to Levi Ashcroft, and then going an Angus Hasty up to Xavier Lindsay to get those two in. I'm not sure. If I go Will Day out, it means I can play all of O'Sullivan, Lindsay, and Ashcroft on field this week. If I go a Sanders out instead, obviously putting Garcia back into the forward line, it would mean a Davidson or a Wicks on field through the looping of Connor Stone this week. So I'm undecided with it. I think both could be trade outs though, for sure. So, but anyway, appreciate everyone that tuned in tonight and sent in through all of their questions. Apologies if we didn't get to answer your question. If you either are already a patron or would like to become a patron to get all your questions answered and all more bonus content and a heap of stuff over there, make sure you head to patreon.com/AFL Fantasy Fanatics. There are links at the top of the description as well if you wish to become a Patreon member. But if not, we will be live on Friday afternoon with our pre-lockout chat, as always, answering a heap more of your questions. And we will have teams at that point, a little bit more information, and can help you out with a heap of your questions there as well. But boys, thank you very much for jumping on. Liam, mate, thanks for jumping on once again, mate. Where can the people find you across the socials? And any final thoughts before, obviously, Tuesday night before we get teams?
Look, you can find me on Twitter at Liam AFLW Fantasy. My one final thought is there was a comment, Bales, on one of the videos we did in the preseason where I threw up some flags on Ollie Hollands, who underperformed, on Riley Sanders, who underperformed, and Clary Oliver, who underperformed. I ask everyone this week to actually watch and see, is the same explosive Clary back, or is he still stuck in the mud? That's my one thing. I still think he's getting a free ride in our minds and how stuck he is in our teams. Yep.
No, the big watch this week. Hopefully he can go well with a few better matchups at least on the horizon. Giants was the one tough one. So hopefully he can get going there as well. James, mate, very good to have you back on the show. Obviously been a little while since we got you back, but obviously you're back and obviously back on the airwaves. So thanks for jumping on. Where can the people find you across the socials and your final thoughts as well?
Yeah, thanks, Bales. Always good to come back and talk some fantasy. I'm at Shuckers Fantasy on Twitter. Not too active, but do get around it for sure. If I'm being totally honest, in the last 2 days, my final thought has been, fuck, I want to win this Hilux. If I'm being frank, that's all I can think about. I know it's a long season, but I'm not getting, and it's probably getting ahead of myself, but I've never had this good a start ever, and I probably never will. So,
yeah. Oh, the redemption story. Can he get it done? So I will be keeping a close eye and a keen eye on everything that happens as well. But you've started off well. You couldn't have had a better start. So, good luck to obviously you and everyone else out there to see how the season goes. But you can find me at BAILSDT, and you can find us at AFL Fantasy Fans on Twitter. And my final thought would be, I had a bad week. I'm sure a lot of you out there had a bad week as well. It's week one. You have one bad week. You could come first in Australia next week, and all of a sudden you're probably well inside the top 1,000 after that, after you catch up those points. So 1 week is it is a long time fantasy when you've had a bad week, but it can turn around very, very quickly. I know Mitch said it on the Ball Boys pod the other night that he was ranked about, I think it was like 30 odd K last year, and then he was like with 7K within a couple of weeks. So and then like really shot ranks, and obviously finished 16th. So there is definitely a lot of time to make all this ground up. So yeah, keep going, keep pushing through, keep making good trades, and you will be rewarded. But yeah, beautiful. I appreciate everyone tuning in. As always, thanks to everyone that sent through the questions. I already said that. But yeah, obviously, if you are listening back to the pod and can leave a 5-star rating and review, that'd be very much appreciated. And if you are tuning in on YouTube right now, make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe to our channel. Plenty more content coming. Trade Talk is back tomorrow for the first one of the season. Captain's Thursday. And then we've got some watch-alongs as well as we close out the week, along with our pre-lockout chat. 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. per time. We'll see you guys there on Friday after the Ball Boys show. So thanks, everyone. Happy trading, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. So thanks, everyone. See ya.